All right, we're gonna get started. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today, which is a student athlete panel featuring two ESM alumni, both from the London area, who are currently in the US. So I'm joined by Mia Holtze, who goes to Williams and is going to graduate in December, and Sam Rothschild, who is a rower at Dartmouth, who's just completed his second year. So obviously Mia and Sam, thank you guys so much for joining us, and thank you to everyone who's tuning into this either live or on the recording. We obviously get a lot of students who are interested in not just going to study in the US, but also competing on the athletic front. So we figured, hey, let's ask a few students about their experiences so far and how they kind of went through the process of, first of all, getting noticed. And then, of course, how it's been, as a student athlete at this day and age, kind of in the COVID/post-COVID era. And then I'll kind of chime in every once in a while and share a couple of my own experiences as a student athlete. Mia plays basketball too, by the way. I should have mentioned that. Mia's a basketball player at Williams. I played basketball at Yale long time ago, before they were even good. But yeah, so I'm really excited. Thanks so much for coming, guys. All right, so Mia, if you can just give us like we'll kind of jump straight into the questions, honestly, right? So obviously you graduated from high school in London. You knew you wanted to play basketball. When and how did the recruitment process start for you?
Yeah, I was trying to reflect on this yesterday with my dad. I always kind of wanted to play college basketball, so it was always in the back of my mind. But I think sophomore year is when it started getting kind of serious. Like, okay, what are the next steps to try to make this a reality? And I think the first steps were like the big decisions. Like, okay, I'm not good enough to play D1, so I want to play D2? Not really. Like academics are really important to me. So D3 is probably the right answer. Do I want big or small? Okay, I want small. And so then I remember talking to you, Josh, and you like wrote out a list of like 20 schools that like fit that initial criteria. And that was probably like junior year, and then just like a flood of emails to all those coaches. And I remember like changing out the dear, what's your face, like all the different coaches, and just kind of spamming them. And then the list just like slowly filtered down. And then junior year, getting serious about like visiting the colleges. And then senior year, going on official visits.
Okay, what about for you, Sam?
So for me, the process started, I think it was towards the end of junior year. And, I think for me, the two most important things applying to the US were, academics and rowing. And there was sort of just this general realization, I think, in kind of British rowing that if you were at a certain level, you could kind of continue to pursue that in the US, also at a very high level. And, I think we kind of, with the SM, quickly realized that the Ivy League made up a lot of the schools that were kind of the top end for both rowing and academics, and then with your help was able to kind of whittle the list down, as Mia said, and pursue that further.
So the point that you made though about kind of realizing, okay, D1 might not be for me, right? So that's kind of like a humbling realization, but also when did you notice that, like, oh wow, the D3 level is still a very, very kind of high level?
I think this summer, my junior summer and my sophomore summer, I attended a lot of these like elite college camps where like the coaches invite you. And I think that was when it became pretty clear because I went to the Columbia one and the level was just, I was not good enough. Like it was pretty obvious from that camp. But then I was going to like the Middlebury camp and the Williams camp and like, oh, I was like getting noticed and this felt like more my level. And so like at the time, I remember being disappointed, but upon retrospect, like I didn't want to be a D1 athlete. D3 was definitely for me. So I ended up working out.
And then for you, Sam, with Dartmouth, and that's the thing, right? We should also mention it wasn't all straightforward for any of us kind of getting to where we wanted to go. But talk a little bit more about your process, Sam, and how you kind of ended up with Dartmouth as, the right fit choice for you in the end.
Yeah. So I remember I didn't end up going on many of the visits like I suppose Mia did. I did one visit to Harvard, which was a great experience. I think it's really important to meet the coaches and get as best possible feel for the team. I did, however, make a few unofficial visits on your recommendation, which was really helpful. It was good to kind of meet the coaches in the off season and talk to them because I think they have a bit more time to to speak to you when they're not busy coaching, and I think you can get a really good feel for how a program works through talking to the coaches. And I think I was able to kind of whittle down the programs that I would have wanted to row at. Through those conversations, I think I knew that Dartmouth was kind of up and coming in rowing, and the coach is kind of pushing this rhetoric about culture trumps talent. That's kind of our team's mantra, which I think is really important for success in sport, and kind of made it attractive to me. And then some of the other Ivy Leagues were also, doing things I was really interested in. So I think through talking to the coaches and where possible, people currently on the team, you can really figure out where would be a good fit to you and kind of guide the application process.
And then you guys both mentioned kind of like reaching out to coaches as an important thing, right? Obviously, I think a lot of aspiring student athletes, they'll know that, and they'll send an email, and we'll tell them, hey, you might not hear back, right? How did you, in terms of managing the communication and following up or sending them, things to kind of review, just explain that process a little bit, right? Like just managing the correspondences.
Right. So yeah, I think organization and persistence are kind of the two most important factors in reaching out to coaches and actually getting responses, because they have the recruitment forms on their websites, which are good and definitely worth filling out. But in my opinion, the best way to get noticed is to email, or even ideally actually have a phone call with the coach. And they won't always necessarily respond to your first message, and I don't think that should be taken as discouragement or them not being interested. I think they're just incredibly busy and have a lot of people calling them. So I think it is important to send that first mail, wait a while, and if no response comes, then definitely follow up. And if you can visit in person, I think I can't really stress enough the importance of that. But yeah, no, I would once again just reiterate the importance of not getting deterred if your first email or text isn't responded to. I remember I'm a class of 24, and the top recruit in my year, who's now a silver medalist at under 23 World Championships, was actually ignored his entire first year of applying to Dartmouth, because the coaches didn't think he'd make the standard. But he was persistent, he kept training, and he actually went to visit the boathouse most weekends because he lived nearby, and eventually got noticed, and got to the point where he's now arguably the best person on our entire team. So yeah.
And for you, Mia, at what point, or what was it when Williams is like, hey, like, we want you, basically, right? Like, talk to us about that point when kind of that hard work paid off and you realized like, oh, this is actually going to happen.
Yeah, my junior year, it whittled down to like 6 or 7 schools that I was like really in contact with, and I met with them my junior spring. And because I was coming from abroad and they like couldn't come watch me play live, they invited me to their camps my junior summer as like a kind of tryout, which was terrifying. And then from those tryouts, like I liked 3 of them, and 3 of them liked me and invited me for official visits. So like at Williams and Johns Hopkins and McAllister, which were my big 3, like they were like, we want you, come for the official visit. And the official visit really serves as like my opportunity to like get to know the team and the culture and decide if I want to come. So that summer was very big for me, but I completely agree with remaining persistent and like not taking it personally if they don't respond.
Yeah, and the point that you guys both made, it's like, I can relate to so much. It's, you're far, right? Like if you're in Europe, you gotta understand they have a litany of players that they can recruit in the US, right? Especially for basketball, Mia. So that's like another thing to consider. And then for rowing, granted, Sam, we all know that England's like, one of the premier countries in the world for rowing, so you have a slight advantage there. But still, in terms of like evaluating you race to race or coming to watch you practice, they can't just kind of drop in. So in terms of like evaluating your skill set, there weren't that many opportunities, right? I'm kind of gathering it. Like Mia, it was like that camp, right? Maybe a little bit of footage. Sam, it was, how do you think they evaluated you as a rower?
Yeah, so I would say there are sort of 3 ways to evaluate, rowers looking at kind of prospective rowers looking at colleges. I would say first of all is just your physical fitness. One of the nice things about rowing is that you have your 2,000 meter test on the rowing machine, which is kind of a very objective measure. You can assess very easily who's fit, the people next to you based on your 2K score. So coaches will look at that to kind of filter the pool. They'll say, okay, we're primarily interested in people who have gone under 6'12", let's say. The different schools will have different numbers as their kind of cutoffs. And then following that is the next kind of prerequisite I would say that they look at, well, not so much a prerequisite, but something that's helpful they look at is race results. They'll want to see, good race results from your club season. They might want to see some international racing. I didn't have any of that. It's not necessary, but it can definitely be useful to have that level of experience. And then I would say the most important thing that they'll look at once you've kind of got your foot through the door with kind of a degree of success in those two other areas is fit next to the team. So I didn't actually fully appreciate the importance of this when I was applying to college, but now I've kind of been on the other end and kind of hosted potential recruits on their official visits. The coaches are really interested to hear kind of current teammates' opinions about those visiting and how we feel they would fit in with the culture of this team and the direction we're trying to move in. So I just think it's really important to kind of make sure that you're fit enough, strong enough, skillful enough to get your foot through the door with the prerequisites, kind of fitness and skill. And then, just really be yourself on the team visit. Make sure that you kind of do your best to bond with the guys or the girls while you're there. And I'm sure that if you are yourself and come across genuinely, they'll have good things to say about you to the coach, and that will hopefully kind of finish you off as a good candidate.
Yeah, and again, I took, you get 5 official visits, right? That's like the NCAA limit. You can kind of do them in the junior year, start a senior year. And I remember I was like, I'm going to take all my visits, right? You get to like leave school on Thursday if you go to school in the US, and you kind of, it's an all expense trip to the campus, and they're basically like showing you the best sides of like, here's the best dining hall or the restaurant nearby. And I remember I went to Brown one weekend, I loved it, and I was ready to sign on the dot. And then I was like, someone said, you should probably go on your second visit to compare it. Then I went to Yale, and I was even more blown away. And then I was like, all right, like I can't go on any more visits. Like this is it. This is the right fit for me. So I definitely, and like you said, Sam, I was hosted by this kid, Chris, who just made me realize, wow, like this is just like, it feels like home. Like these are the guys that I want to spend the next few years with. And, especially with the team sports, right? Like that dynamic is really so valuable. It actually reminds me, in terms of walking on, right? Because that's the other option people explore. It's, hey, what if I can kind of get into school on my own, and then I'll just like, I really want to row, I really want to play soccer or basketball, I'll just try walking on. What have you kind of seen from that point of view? Is there a success rate? Is it impossible? Mia, do you have any walk-ons on your team since you've been there?
We don't have any walk-ons. I have heard of some people on other teams. Like I have a friend on men's soccer who was able to walk on. I think it just depends on the coach. Like I think if there was a player that came to Williams and was really good and somehow missed the recruiting process, my coach would give her a chance. But she isn't usually. But basketball is also a really small sport, so we don't have like roster spots to give out like other sports. But I think it can work, and I think that like at other NESCACs, I've heard of walk-ons happening.
Okay, and Sam, obviously your process was kind of similar to a walk-on process, although you had obviously communication. So yeah, you want to speak a bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So so as Josh kind of mentioned just now, I am technically a walk-on on the rowing team here, just because of how my application unfolded. And we do also have quite a few walk-ons on the squad now, and they're kind of represented at every level. So our fastest walk-ons actually in the first varsity crew, which is I think currently ranked 4th in the nation. So we definitely, there is definitely room to kind of develop talent if you want to at that level. But then also kind of in the 3rd and 5th varsity 8s, we have walk-ons as well who are just starting out or are kind of at a different level of commitment, and all those guys are completely integrated with the team and accepted within the team. I think the culture that we've tried to set up, anyhow, I would say this isn't necessarily typical of every Ivy League, but it's definitely replicated among other schools. Is recruitment is more just an admissions thing, and once you're on the team, kind of everyone's created equally, no matter whether or not you walked on or recruited or quite how you got there. It's just the assessment year to year that we do that determines where you lie. So yeah.
All right, I kind of want to get more into what it takes to get to the level that you guys are at, right? So, in high school, you probably competed for your team, or maybe you played for a club. But how much did you really like practice or train in high school, right, Mia? Like how much time did you dedicate to your craft?
At the time, I thought a lot. In comparison to what I do now, nothing. But in high school, I played 3 sports ASL. So I was like usually busy with whatever sport I was doing. But even when I was in like soccer season or softball season or the summer, I was working out individually with coaches, which was huge. That was probably like the most important thing that I did. and just like getting shots up and like keeping overall fitness. Definitely important to like have the basketball in your hands all year round and like be comfortable with the game. But yeah, upon retrospect, it just is not the same level as now. But yeah.
All right, Sam, what about for you?
Yeah, I was at school. I would say we probably averaged about 18 hours a week of training during the term, with the heaviest weeks getting up towards 24 hours. I would say that you know there are certain rules, you know, in the NCAA about how much practice you can do while you're at university, but you know, there are lots of opportunities to get down to the boathouse and do some individual practice if you feel that the limit on time hours isn't perhaps allowing you to improve enough. So I would agree with Mia. It was definitely more practice at college than there was at school. At school, there was it was only organized practice. I would say though that I initially got into rowing as a form of weight loss, so I was doing a bit of extra practice to begin with, and I've kind of carried that over just because I enjoy it, and I find it gives a little bit of an edge in terms of fitness, you know, with your kind of internal competition when it comes to selection. But yeah, no, I think it's kind of more than fine to just follow the coach's regulations of about 22 to 24 hours a week at college.
Okay. All right, so now kind of talking about the transition to college, right? 'Cause I know a lot of people want to hear more about that. So for you, Mia, what was the biggest adjustment, you know, or challenge when you got to campus and you're like, okay, like I am now a student athlete at Williams? You know, what was the most difficult part about that?
I think ASL actually like adequately prepared me for like the time management and the level of school and balancing sports and school. I think my biggest adjustment was just like in terms of basketball, everyone was the star on their high school team and now they're all on a team together. And so it's a very humbling experience and like huge change of what you're used to. I was definitely the worst on my team my freshman year. And also just like the basketball IQ is so much higher. Like going from European basketball, which is objectively not that good, just the pace of the game, everyone's stronger, athletic. I'm short now when I was like a giant in high school. And like I was discussing it with my dad yesterday that like I was so unaware the depths of basketball that I was completely unaware of in high school, like how to play a screen. You can trap it, you can high hedge, you can flat hedge, you can switch. Like I didn't even know what those terms meant when I arrived my freshman year. So just like feeling really overwhelmed with like, oh my gosh, now I have to be like a student of the game. And that's like not what I was expecting. But yeah, that was probably the biggest adjustment.
Yeah, it's again, you know, I played in Europe as well, right? And then get to the States, and for me, it was like the physicality on the court and the athleticism. Yeah, like you said, I was like the tallest kid, and you know, used to kind of being able to do whatever I want on the court in Europe, and then all of a sudden I get there, and yeah, same kind of thing. Like I'm on the bottom of the depth chart and the roster, and just trying to earn minutes here and there, and it's like very very humbling. But you know, you have to adjust, and obviously there are kids who don't make the adjustment, right? And they decide like, hey, like I can't kind of be part of this team because I can't. There's not a role that I am comfortable with. So, what about for you, Sam? What was the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, I resonate with what you and Mia are saying about the depth chart. I think you arrive, you know, having been in your school's first team and you know, hopefully having had a pretty successful season, and you know you're all of a sudden thrown into a team with people who've been at college for a few years and have also been in their most successful school team, and it's a big adjustment. I would say that I think I was also pretty well prepared for the kind of work sport dynamic. However, I think that at least one thing that I wasn't accustomed to that I started at uni or at college was morning practice. And I would say that I really learned the importance of sleep freshman year. My coach in school used to have a saying that hours before midnight count double when it comes to sleep. And I kind of can't stress that enough. I think it's really important to get work done during the day and then sleep early. I think that's kind of one of the bigger adjustments that I found. And then one other thing I would point to is just the intensity of the practice. At school, a lot of the practices would be at kind of set lower intensities, and it would just be about, you know, perfecting technique or doing a race plan, something like that. At college, every stroke was just as hard as possible because, you know, everyone wants to be in that first day, everyone's competing, and everyone's trying to go really fast. So kind of the intensity was ramped way up, which was also a bit of an adjustment.
Okay. I know it's like summer now technically, right? And you're both having busy summers. What are you expected to do on the sporting front over the summer? Anything?
Yeah, my coach sends out a lift schedule. So that's 3 days a week with like very specific instructions. And then we also have like a fitness test that we're expected to do the last day of October. And so we kind of have like a vague plan on working your fitness up to that. But you're expected to try to play whenever you can. So a lot of my teammates are in like summer leagues and just shooting. And my coach just like really stresses that you should return to campus better than when you were at the spring. Like you should be a better player and have worked on something. And we always have a meeting right before we leave, and we're given a booklet with like individualized workouts and like a list of goals that she wants to see us improve on.
Okay, Sam?
Yeah, we also have a fitness test. Our first day back, it's just 30 minutes on the rowing machine at a low cadence, go as far as you can. And while we're not given any sort of firm individual workouts to do over the summer, there is a sort of meters challenge every break where, you know, a big spreadsheet gets sent out to the whole team, and the guy who goes the most meters over the summer gets a prize, usually like a Dartmouth rowing top or something like that, which is kind of a nice way to keep the competition ticking over. One thing I would at Dartmouth, we have this thing called sophomore summer where the second years stay over on campus for what would usually be the summer holiday for a kind of extra term where you might take classes or do something else. And that will enable my class to kind of be at the boathouse regularly rowing boats, which is really good, I think, for staying in touch with kind of fitness in the stroke. But other than that, a lot of people either sign up for their local clubs or just, you know, train at home, kind of at the local gym or, you know, whatever suits.
All right, and then in terms of like the typical day in the life, right? And you know, I remember when I was, you know, you had the off season and then obviously like in season. So kind of those two different perspectives. What does it usually look like for you? So let's say starting with an in season normal day. Take us through that day, Mia. Like, or get even let's say a practice day and a game day. What do those look like?
A practice day. I mean, I'm very lucky to go to a school where we have this division of the day. So there's no classes between 4 and 6. So our practice is always 4 and 6. So you'll have classes. So we lift twice a week in season. So we might have lift, we might not. Then you attend your classes. In season, I personally like to go either have an individual workout with my assistant coach like before or after practice and just like get shots up, or just like go shoot on the gun. Kind of like Sam mentioned, in high school, I would show up cold to practice and get warmed up in my practice. And in college, I need to be like ready to go and like treat it really intensely from the start. So I usually like try to shoot before practice. I show up to practice 45 minutes early, like at the latest. I get my ankles taped because I'm injury gang, and then shoot with my teammates, and then practice starts, and my coach always goes the whole time. And then we usually have dinner as a team, and then library studies.
Okay.
And then for a game day, I didn't really realize this in high school, but a game day, that is your whole day. So we'll have games either at like 6 p.m. if it's like a Friday, or like 3 p.m. if it's a Saturday. And so we usually have, if it's a night game, the night before, we'll have a scout where we like go through the other team's players and their plays and what offense they run and what defense we're going to run, who's starting. Which really added to the student of the game. It's like a class. And then we'll go down to the gym and we'll walk through their plays. We'll walk through our plays. We'll get shots up as a team. And then we have a team lunch 3 hours before the game. And then usually you go roll out, stretch, and get taped and get in your own zone, do what you need to do, and then go to the game. So it really is a whole day activity.
No. Yeah, our pregame meals were always 4 hours before tip. But then, yeah, you have to miss classes, obviously, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, it's, for me, our practices also are supposed to start at 4, so I had to get there at 3, same kind of thing, get your ankles taped. But I basically blocked out 3 to like 7:30 p.m. Right? It was like a practice day, and that means you're not taking those classes that are available. Then that means you're not getting dinner with like your roommate pretty much ever because we're eating so much earlier. What about for you as a rower, Sam? What does that day kind of look like? Practice day versus race day.
Yeah, sure. So a typical Monday, I guess, in spring season, rowing's a spring sport. Usually I'd arrive around 6:45 in the a.m. for first practice, be off the water and up at breakfast by about 9:30, hit the library for a couple of hours, and then first class at 11:30, and then another class at 12:50, and then get a slightly later lunch around 2, and then after 2, straight back down to the boathouse for second practice, which would be a few more hours, and then get dinner after practice, probably around 6:30, 7, depending on if you stay for a cool down and stretch after practice. And then after dinner, work until about 10, 10:30, either in the library or go and see some friends, kind of depending on how busy we are. That is a slightly busier day though. On Thursdays, as we kind of taper up for the race, there are kind of opportunities to go and hang out with friends or hike or kind of do activities as appropriate. And then a race day, typically we have to travel at least 4 or 5 hours for a race because, we have to go to that school in Connecticut or, Harvard. So that's quite a long bus journey. So we'll typically go down the day before, get some chicken parm in the evening and then wake up early of and kind of go and get ready to race. The preparation's pretty straightforward. We'll usually do a brief pre-row on the course just to get a feel for the water we're going to be rowing on, the current, the wind, etc. Come in, fuel up a little bit more, maybe warm up, and then just get out and crack on with the racing. And then it's a few hours back on the bus, back to campus afterwards, which is always quite a nice team bonding time or just an opportunity to catch up some work if you've had to miss a class for the race.
So in the off season then, I guess, and again, it's different because, you're a spring sport. So, but you're kind of always semi in season in a way. Whereas with basketball, you have like preseason in the fall and then like postseason in the spring. What, is there a major difference in terms of the time commitment? What is that kind of, for you, Mia, without saying, oh, I look forward to the off season too much, but, what's the time difference between in season and out season?
There's definitely a huge difference between the fall and the spring. Fall is intense team workouts, team pickup, and like it feels like you're building towards season. Fitness test focus, getting really strong. And then spring is kind of like your reward for the 5-month season where pickups are kind of relaxed. They're Sunday mornings, which no one's feeling their best. And like lift is kind of on your own schedule. And then summers, you kind of ramp up again. So there's definitely a huge difference, but it's nice.
Yeah, it's a good balance. What about Sam? Are you guys, when's that kind of a little lighter?
Lighter would typically be over the summer. I think the summer is when you're kind of given free reign. You can continue to train full time if you wanted to kind of come back and be that guy who's really fast. But there are no sort of formal requirements of you over the summer. I would say that spring is probably slightly heavier than fall or winter. We do still race in fall, so I think the day I gave you, the kind of typical training day I gave you in spring would be typical of a pretty busy day in fall. And then winter is technically our off season. The river freezes up here, but we're very much kind of hammer and tongs on the fitness. We'll be training 2 times a day, most days, 6 days a week. Really trying to get that kind of fitness edge if we can on Yale and on UW and Cal and Harvard and all those guys. So I think on other rowing squads, the requirement would probably be a bit less over the winter, but we kind of see ourselves as an up and coming program and are trying to be edgy and keep ourselves busy as much as possible with the training. So it's a pretty full-time commitment year round.
Sounds like you have a little bit of media training here as well. No, just promoting Dartmouth. But listen, the other thing, because I'm trying to figure out is, I was a pretty active student on campus and did, different clubs, cultural clubs, organizations, had a few jobs. But I'm also like looking back, I'm like, how did I find time for that? So did you guys ever, do any of your teammates, you guys ever had student jobs? Is there time for that? Are you able to do other things outside of, and we'll talk more about academics in a second, but outside of your sport and school, what else did you have time to do?
I think the main difference between high school and college is that you are not booked from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. You might have 2 classes that day. So you do have random hours during the day where you're free. So I've worked in a lab every semester of college, and I really like that. And I'm also like on the student athlete like board thing. So and like I have teammates that are in dance groups and a cappella groups. And another adjustment from high school is that in high school clubs meet from like 4 to 5, and college clubs meet from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. So just days are longer and you have more opportunity for things. And like your coach, at least my coach, like wants you to be involved in the campus. So if, I mean, you can't miss practice or games, but they like encourage me doing other things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I coached at ASL as well, right? Varsity boys, and you know, there were just weeks at a time where players were like, "Hey, I can't come. I have play rehearsal," right? Yeah, it's just not an option when we're talking about NCAA sports. You know, that you are almost there as like, I don't say it's your job because you're not getting paid, even though that is a whole new thing now. But yeah, Sam, what about at Dartmouth? How's the work-life balance?
Yeah, I would say similar to me, our coaches are also very much encouraging of having other stuff going on, provided that you can meet the requirement for practice and racing, in terms of hours given. I haven't yet had a student job at the same time as practicing in season, but plenty of my friends have, and it's very achievable. I think it's just you have to work in advance, break out the Google Calendar to make sure that you have kind of the right hours during the day to give to the job. And then in terms of clubs, that, as Mia said, the fact that clubs in college meet from kind of 10 to 11 or 9 to 10 is really helpful. So I'm part of one of the software development clubs at Dartmouth, and that's a pretty good one, at least for me, to be involved in, because a lot of there is meetings maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, and other than that, it's just kind of deliverables that are asynchronous, which is pretty handy for me because that works well with my schedule. But I should say there are rowers who engage with the arts and a cappella and are able to meet that time commitment as well. I think it just requires you to be pretty careful with your organization and making sure you don't have to double book yourself.
Okay. In terms of like the team and your teammates, right? Because you obviously spend, so much time with them. Yeah, I kind of know the answer, but like, how close are you really with the teammates? Like, you always hear these stories like, oh, like weddings, it's like the starting five is the best man and the groomsmen and stuff like that. Just for you guys, talk about your relationships with your teammates a little bit.
I can start. I'm definitely very close with my team, but I think unlike a lot of my teammates, my best friends are outside the team. But I think I had a unique experience because my class is only me and one other girl. And so some people have classes of like 5 or 6, so that's just like a friend group built in. And I adore Maddie. She's a really good friend in my life, but like we kind of from the start we're like, okay, we need to like seek friends elsewhere. And I recommend that just because when you're in the deep, dark January time of season and your coach is pissing you off and the team is pissing you off, like having an outlet and friends that can relate to being college athletes. And it was really important for me. And I'm personally really glad I did that. But at the same time, some of my best friends are on the team and I will be attending weddings. And it's very like, that's my favorite part of college sports, just the people I've gotten close with.
Yeah. And Sam, I've seen, a lot of footage of you with your buddies, but, would you say also, you like to post things, it's okay. Would you say that, do you also hang out with kids who are not on the team, and what's that dynamic like for you?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Mia. I think one of the things that got me through school rowing and that I really value is having a network of friends who actually just don't care about the sport that I do whatsoever. I think it can be really nice to if the training is not going so well, you're not quite seeing the results you want to, and you're not very happy at the boathouse. It's nice to have a network of friends who who aren't interested in that, and value you for other things, and you value them for other things, and kind of have different conversation with them. So actually, for my first week of Dartmouth, I barely met any of the rowers. I was mainly just focused on the people in my living accommodation and in my kind of integration groups and that sort of thing. I think those are really nice relationships to cultivate, some of which I'm definitely still benefiting from now. That said, I can't wait to attend my teammates' weddings. I really do love the people on my team. As I said, our motto is culture trans talent, and I think there's something really special about the kind of shared responsibility and accountability you get from rowing and kind of trying to make a boat move fast together. And I think some of the most valuable relationships I'll ever make have probably been made on this team. So I think you definitely don't want to miss the rest of what whichever fantastic school you go to has to offer in terms of the wider community. But I think that there's something really special about being on the team as well.
Because it kind of leads to my next question. Are you kind of either personally or collectively expected to like hang out outside of practices and games, and you have to take classes together, you're supposed to live together, or it's like, no, like this is my team over here and I can do my own thing. How have you guys navigated that, right?
I never really felt a pressure to live with my team or like take classes with my teammates. I think it naturally happens and you naturally find teammates who would be your friend with or without the sport. But that being said, my coach does like organize team bonding events. We have fun Fridays in the fall, so we'll like go for a hike or like go bowling or get dinner as a team or watch a movie or bake or something. And those are really important. And I think that even if you're not best friends with everyone on your team, you should have a personal relationship with everyone on the team, and that's really important. So we also are required to do these one-on-one dates with everyone on the team before season starts, just so like you know them as a person before getting on the court.
Interesting. Okay. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I would say that as well here. There's no pressure really to hang out with the team outside of practice. I think it's a choice that everyone on the team makes because everyone's very close. But yeah, typically you'll see the whole rowing team sitting together after practice because we'll all work out at the boathouse and there are X many cars and everyone kind of loads in and ships up and we're all there at the same time. There's no pressure to live together. I would say Dartmouth actually does a pretty good job of sort of separating teams out on arrival with the on-campus accommodation. I think I'm probably going to do 12 terms actively enrolled at Dartmouth, and I'll live with the rowing with multiple rowers for one of them only. So there's very little pressure on that aspect. And then I personally have never planned to take a class with another rower or other rowers. I'm just kind of focused on taking classes that I'm interested in and filling out the major plan, etc. It has happened once or twice that other rowers, for example, other computer science or classics majors have been in a class with me, or if you find a class that you and several friends are interested in, you might take it together. But I would say that the relationships are predominantly focused on the boathouse and on racing. Whatever friendship you have or decision you have to hang out and be friends outside of that time is very much kind of down to you. There's no external impetus or pressure.
That again leads into my next question. So, what have you noticed the difference between, well, the biggest difference between being a student athlete and like a traditional student? Obviously, the time commitment, we get that part, right? But just is it different? Like I always felt like, hey, especially at Yale, like, do I belong here? Am I only here because of sports? And then it took people, telling me like, hey, like the same way that Yale valued this student for, their biochemistry, they valued you for your sports, and that's your talent. It's nothing to be ashamed of. But, sometimes people feel like there's like a wall between the student athletes and the students. What's it like at your school?
This is definitely a conversation that happens a lot at Williams about the student athlete divide. Because so much of our population, I think like 40% of us are student or varsity athletes. And I agree that like the imposter syndrome is really real freshman year, but I think what you realize is that everyone feels it regardless of how they got in. And sometimes, yeah, I don't know. I think just I'm lucky enough to go to a school that like feels like everyone's an athlete. And so they have like common experience. But sometimes I find myself, the pandemic definitely put like D3 sports in perspective, I think, because when I arrived at campus, it was like, wow, I'm here for basketball. This is really important. This is my life. And then obviously taking a step back from my sport and taking time off of school, I'm like, oh, this is like a sport I love doing. I'm grateful I got to keep playing it, but it's really not the end of the world. I will not be playing professional basketball. And I think that like understanding that like made me feel more like a regular student, like, oh, basketball is something I do, but I am not like a basketball player and it is not my full self-worth. And I also have these like academic passions.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good answer. And then Sam, at Dartmouth, same kind of thing. Do you feel that, again, it's not tension, it's not hostility, it's not like that, but do you feel a difference?
No, I don't. I think Dartmouth is also a small campus like Williams. I'm not sure on the exact relative sizes, but both are small schools. So you also get that sense that a high percentage of the population is varsity athletes. I wouldn't say there's any tension. I think I hadn't perhaps given this as much thought as I might have, just because I guess I sort of benefit from feeling like a walk-on in that I was never technically recruited. So I kind of fortunately treated well, and like the recruited athletes at the boathouse, but don't have that same baggage away from the boathouse. But I can't point to any of my friends feeling who were recruited feeling that way, and I think that in terms of the dining situation, the living situation, the social situation, be that the frat houses or the clubs or whatever else, I think that when you're in like a broader social setting that isn't the team itself, there's no kind of judgment. None of the non-athletes especially mind what team you're on, how successful the team is, how many hours a week you practice. It's kind of just individual personal relations, and the way that unfold will determine how you interact with those people.
Okay. All right. So now for the most important part of today's kind of chat, the academics, right? Saving the best for last, kind of. But I always realize, like you said, the time management piece. Sam, you mentioned you might go to the library during the day. When you kind of need to. So, how much harder is it to balance homework and to manage the time? Like, do you make a conscious effort every day? Do you have a schedule that you kind of follow? How do you approach handling everything? Go ahead, Mia.
Yeah, I think it just forces you to be really organized. Like when I get my syllabus at the start of the semester, I put in all my assignments throughout the whole semester. And then I also have my game schedule. And so then I can see like, oh, that week is really going to suck. I need to like plan ahead. And just like knowing things are coming is really important. So yeah, just like forcing you to be organized. Because if you're not, then you won't be able to ask the professor to miss class in time. And then you're kind of in this like frenzy, and it's kind of scary. So
are there advisors that help you kind of plan that out, or is it just kind of up to the individual?
At Williams, you get a first year advisor. Mine wasn't the best, so I didn't really use her very much. But I think like your older teammates really help you and say like, oh, this is what I do. This is what works well. Make sure you do this. And my coach helps too. Like a week before a game, they'll be like, does anyone have a 350 class on Friday? And then you'll, so there are people help that want you to succeed and help guide you.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, so I think my approach is quite similar to Mia's. At the beginning of a term, I'll get on Google Calendar, plot out all my classes for that term and all the practice and race schedule for the next 10 weeks. Our coaches are very encouraging of academic success. There's an award every term for the highest achieving academic student, partly because that is a strong tenet of the culture we want to foster, and partly because at the bottom line, it helps recruitment. Down the line, if we're an academically successful team. So yeah, no, our coach's kind of mantra to us is in order of importance in life, it goes family, work, and then rowing. So that's kind of something we try to follow. I would say that you aren't really given an academic advisor at Dartmouth, at least as an athlete. You can reach out to what we call DP2, which is Dartmouth Peak Performance, in order to get one if you feel you need the help. But it's kind of down to you to organize yourself as best you can. And usually it's pretty doable. You might need to miss the odd class and make that up in an office hours if you have a race, or there happens to be a practice clash. There are almost never kind of instances though where practices clash with classes. And then I would just reiterate, I'm a big believer in checklists. So every week I'll have like a checklist of every assignment I need to do and when it needs to be in by, and I'll kind of just refresh that every Sunday. And then I just find that sleeping early really helps keep me kind of alert and on top of assignments that need to be done. I really can't stress enough how much I've learned about the benefit of sleep from 2 years at college. So. Yeah,
no, I feel that because I remember, like Mia said, with the older players, kind of giving some guidance. When I got there, I knew I wanted to take a couple of classes, but I didn't know how to round out the rest of my schedule. And it said like, oh, you need a science requirement, and you see all these courses that are like very scientific. And I'm like, oh, I'm not really a STEM guy. And then older players like, oh, take this science class. Like it's a little bit more straightforward. It's more for people that are not necessarily too sciencey, and having that kind of guidance is helpful. But I do think one big thing is, like the DP2 at your school, Sam, there are resources available, right? And I think a lot of people, given already you have so much on your plate, you're just kind of like, oh, I don't want to add something else or, be accountable to yet another person. But realistically, they are there for a reason, right? So we always encourage people like, if you need it, don't be afraid to ask, right? If you can handle it on your own, then obviously that's great too.
Yeah, I would say I don't maybe Neil resonate with this as well. There are kind of hundreds of student athletes at Dartmouth and at Williams, and there are these fantastic resources that are available, but they can't reach out to everyone. So you do have to go to them to really profit from what they have to offer. And don't get me wrong, they are definitely powerful services with advice in lots of spheres that can be very beneficial if taken advantage of correctly.
So what's your major, Mia?
I'm a psych and public health.
Okay, so how, did you come to that decision on your own, or is there like a set of popular majors that the teammates do, or how did you go about that process of picking a major?
Williams definitely prioritizes academics, so my team varies completely. We have a couple pre-meds, and that's like they major in psych, bio, chem, or anything really, and then we got econ. Like we have all across the board, and so yeah, there isn't really like a popular major. I think that might be a more D1 thing, but D3 is definitely what you want to major in, is what you're gonna do.
Yeah, and it's Sam, because you obviously, I know the classics have always been a big part of your life, and then when you told me you're doing computer science, it was kind of just like, wait, what? But great. But how did you come to that decision?
Yeah, so as you said, classics has been with me for a while, and I knew that I wanted to go somewhere I could do that. And then I took my freshman fall, so my first time at Dartmouth, I took CS1, which is our introductory computer science course, and I really enjoyed learning a different sort of language that's also unspoken, and a lot of problem solving entailed in that class, and I just thought it was really cool. So I've kind of kept going, and just found that I really enjoy the the problem solving aspect and kind of feeling like I've made something. Most courses here result in a final project at the end of a term, like you build a software that does something. I think it's really cool. At least I found to be in a class where you're kind of make something that's productive in a self-sufficient way at the end of the term. As for the team, I wouldn't say that there are any that there's kind of one major that's like rampantly most popular. I would say econ is the most popular major at Dartmouth, and that is to an extent reflecting the team in that we have like 7 econ majors out of about 50 guys. But other than that, I was thinking last night, I think about 85% of the different majors available at the college are represented on the team at any given time, and computer science and econ being 2 of the bigger ones will be slightly larger on the team. But there's no kind of group of guys that all decide to major in like Latin American studies or Italian or whatever. I think it's everyone's kind of on their own academic journey and wanting to pursue that as best they can, with the practice schedule as well.
And then Mia, you mentioned like sometimes having to miss class on a game day. So what happens when you have to miss a class? Like how do you handle that? Who do you have to reach out? Obviously the professor, but talk us through that.
Yeah, so my coach has never said like don't take a Friday evening class, but it's like recommended that you try to avoid those, but sometimes you can't. So we have Friday night games. So if we're going to Bowdoin or a school up in Maine, we have to leave pretty early, and so you'll probably miss your class. So usually my coach recommends like going to see your professor in general and having a personal relationship with them. And so like telling them that you're an athlete and like, hey, my season's going to start in this month, but I'll reach out to you when it comes closer. And then she has this rule that you're not allowed to email them. You have to go talk to them in person and say, I will not be in class Friday, December, whatever. And professors at Williams are really understanding because they know that you don't have a choice. And so just like doing it ahead of time, and it's usually fine. But I've had many instances where I've had a Tuesday night game and a Tuesday night test, so I have to take my test on Monday. So just like, again, being aware of what's coming in the upcoming weeks is really important.
Okay. Same thing for you, Sam?
Yeah, I would say my experience is very similar to Mia's on this. The relationship with any prof, unless you've had a class with them before, typically start at the beginning of your 10-week term. And why our coach, in the same way as Mia says, you got to go to them in person at least the first time round, and explain your situation to them. And then after that, it's acceptable to email them kind of your schedule of classes that you'll need to be excused from. And typically they'll either require you to watch the lecture if it's recorded, which has been actually a great product of Zoom learning, that all the lectures are now available online. I find that super helpful. or they'll actually require you to go to office hours at some other different time in the week to talk through the material with them, which I actually found was super helpful. If anything, I feel like I've profited quite a lot from one-to-one time with professors this term. But yeah, no, I mean, every professor, at least at Dartmouth, at least that I've encountered, has been very understanding. Our national championships actually happens during finals, which is a pretty difficult crunch on exams and on timings. But profs have always been incredibly supportive and helping us reschedule exams, move classes, make sure that we're able to really do our best to be competing at the highest level, on the water and in the classroom. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, same kind of thing with me. Like, communication is the key, right? And letting them know, and you can't go after the fact, like, oh, like I didn't go to the seminar because I had a game. It just doesn't look good on you, on the team, on the coaches. So having that accountability, I think it really matters. So Mia, you already kind of referenced the kind of long-term picture, right? Like, oh, I'm not going to be a professional basketball player, and you're okay with that. But in terms of long-term goals, and how can you playing a sport kind of help you reach them, or kind of like, what's the vision for, okay, a lot of kids' athletic careers ends at high school, right? So, oh, I played in high school, and that's good. And I always say less than 1% of high school athletes actually make it to the NCAAs, and then even fewer become professional. So for you, you've been an athlete your whole life. You're saying base is kind of winding down, but how is it helping you kind of for the next stage of your life?
I think it's really helped me in terms of just like loving fitness and like being like working out and like having a new appreciation for that. So I hope to continue that in the future. I think in college they you really start understanding like what food is good for your body, like how can I best like use my body for my fitness, which I find really cool. So doing that in the future, a lot of my teammates run marathons and half marathons, so maybe that's way in the future. But also, I just really like basketball, so I have lots of teammates who play in rec leagues and like play casually and play pickup, and so I would love to do that too, but we'll see.
WNBA though is just
Don't think so.
I don't think so. What about for rowers, Sam? What do rowers do if they don't go to the Olympics, and then after they grad? What's the deal?
Right. So at the top, I'd say there are sort of three levels of competition, at least in British rowing. There's the senior squad, which is World Championships and the Olympic team. There's the under-23 squad, which is, I think, my end goal for rowing, whenever I'd see my potential maxing out, which is if you're 23 years or younger, you go and compete at a World Championship, with and against other people in that age range. That's typically, I would say, about 90 to 95% the standard of the senior squad. The fitness is a little bit lower, the experience is a bit less, but it's still a really high caliber of racing, and I think something to be proud of. And then below that, there's kind of continued club involvement in rowing. So there are plenty of rowing clubs in the Thames, where you can row, recreationally to still a very high standard, and that could result in racing at Henley, Royal Regatta in the UK, or other organized races, which is still serious, but I would say less of a sort of goal, but like a kind of milestone for most people than maybe international racing would be. But yeah, I think same as Mia, I've come to really enjoy fitness and kind of the time commitment. We've been saying throughout this webinar that rowing and basketball take up a lot of time, and I think they do. But I've also found that the sort of organization required of me, like kind of the organization that rowing has required me to have, has made me a far more efficient worker and a far better worker. So I think I'll probably continue to do sports at the best possible level I can after rowing. I kind of on a whim ran a marathon last winter with some friends and really got a taste for that. So I think I might try and get into cycling and Ironman a bit more after the rowing career ends. But I sort of just can't quite imagine a life without sports, even if it is a life without rowing after college.
Okay. All right. Well, obviously it's been so helpful, and I think people. By the way, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat or the Q&A, as we kind of wrapped up our Q&A version of it. But me and Sam, do you guys want to kind of give some final words of advice while people maybe come up with some questions?
Sure. I mean, I think we touched on it earlier, but imposter syndrome is really real at college, and I felt it a lot in basketball. Like, whoa, was I recruited on a fluke? And I think people like really have their esteem tied in with their sport. Like if you're getting a lot of minutes, you're worth a lot. If you're not, you're worth very little. And I've been lucky enough to like build myself as a player, and now I'm a contributing member and I play, and that's great. But learning how to separate yourself from your game and know your self-worth despite your minutes is like really important, and you're worthy and you're like enough to be on the team regardless of like if it's going how you planned.
Yeah, when kids say, Josh, I looked at your basketball reference page and you only average 3 minutes a game. I'm like, hey, I'll take those 3 minutes. Like, yeah, it's 3 minutes of joy. Yeah, it's 4 years too, right? Like you have that's a long time to develop as well. Sam, last little insightful words from you.
Yeah, I would before I launch into mine, I would just stress the importance of being able to separate your life from your performance, as Mia said. I think that's hugely important, for happiness in college as an athlete, and it's something that's occasionally difficult. Sorry, excuse me. Something that can be challenging. And then for my own advice, which is sort of just about wider happiness, partly because at the end of the day, that's more important than sports, and even if we're looking at it from a very kind of sports analytical point of view, happy athletes will perform better. I think just keep in mind, if you're fortunate enough to end up at any school, D3 through D1 or otherwise, you're in an amazing place. And I think just coming to practice and racing with the mentality that you are kind of lucky enough to be there and want to prove, to those around you who are, your amazing teammates, that you're lucky enough to be there, you're going to be doing really well and be really happy, because it's a very challenging environment, and the ability to fit in with those people can sometimes be challenging, but just trying your best is enough, and is a serious accomplishment in my view. So
I'm telling you, you guys both have coaching in your future after today's talk. No, but very, very, very insightful, guys. I really appreciate it. Obviously, I know it's kind of the start of the summer, and you guys are taking time out to spread the gospel a little bit. So, again, I can't thank you enough. And thank you to everyone who joined today. I hope you guys found this useful. Enjoy your summer, enjoy the breaks. If you're out of season, get some rest. If you're still trying to get better, get in the gym. But thanks again to everyone for joining. Thank you, Mia and Sam, again for your wise words.